So I know that many American citizens believe that the United States is an oppressive, racist, horrible country to have been unlucky enough to have been born in. Maybe so, but I'm going to give you a little perspective as someone who's done a lot of traveling. What I'm going to do is compare the United States to telling you a few stories about my trip to Syria, which was at the end of 2010, shortly before the whole country fell apart. Some of the areas that I visited, like Palmyra, were subsequently taken over by ISIS. And the Roman ruins, which once stood there, which I'll show you a couple photos of, have since been destroyed. Way to go, ISIS. Way to enact positive change in the world. In addition to showing you how other people around the world live, I want you to be able to compare America, both economically and culturally and socially, to a country that the odds are pretty good that you haven't been. And going forward, for the next decade at least, the odds are even greater that you won't go. So why did I, in 2010, decide to go to Syria? There was a lot of unrest going on even at that time, but hey, it's the Middle East. There is always unrest going on. The reason that I went is because I was challenged. My travel agent was Syrian from the country, and he told me it was safe. Go there, he said. Got nothing to fear, got nothing to lose. Okay, let's book a trip to Syria. So I boarded this propeller plane, took off, sat down, somehow met the only other American who was on board the plane who was studying there. He actually invited us to his house, but we got to Damascus. We landed. I get to the front of the line. The guy rifles through my passport numerous times. I'm not exactly sure at that moment what he's looking for, but then he asked me, "Are you Israeli?" No, my passport says that I'm from the United States. Have you ever been to Israel? I knew the right answer to that. No. Also, I don't have that Israeli stamp in my passport, and I had never been to Israel at that point. Then he's asked me if I was a Jew. I kind of got the hint at that point as to what the right answer was. And finally, after about 20 minutes or so, he stamped my passport. After one more question, what are you doing here in Syria? Which I guess is a fair question for an American. The correct answer is not here to assassinate Bashar Assad, which flashed through my mind momentarily, but fortunately I managed to keep a lid on that, and they let me into the country. I met with the American. He invited me back to his house to stay. Normally I get somewhere and I just find some cheap hotel, never know where I'm going ahead of time, and he let me stay with him. On the way to his place, the taxi broke down every kilometer. The guy had to get out, let the engine cool, do a little finicking with it, and finally, after 30 kilometers, we made it to his place. It was very late at night. I don't imagine, to compare it to the United States, that you'd give your Uber driver such a good rating had that happened to you. In the morning, woke up and got a freedom of speech lecture from my two American hosts for that evening. The first thing that you're not allowed to do, as you might guess, Israel is pretty taboo there. You cannot say the word Israel. You've got to code it up. You want to say Israel, they call it Disneyland. The only way you're allowed to say Israel is if something negative follows the word. In the center of Damascus, Old Town Damascus, there is a metal Israeli flag that rests upon the ground. If you don't walk over the flag, they view you with some suspicion. Another thing that is a big no-no is to criticize anybody politically. This is an example. My host once stated that Bashar Assad had done a good job opening up the country. His father, who was the original Assad dictator, this puts him in a bad light. The people that he said this to edged away from him. That was a big no-no. The mere implication that Bashar's father, Mr. Assad Sr., did not do such a great job with the country, with opening it up, was reason enough to leave you. Now, the reason for this is, as you've already, is because of the Mukhabarat. The Mukhabarat are the Syrian Secret Police. There are all sorts of plainclothes spies because this is what dictators do. They have a whole intelligent apparatus there to inform on the public as to what they're saying. And they arrest you, and then you get tortured. Nobody dares whisper the name Mukhabarat. You talk to somebody who was interrogated by the Mukhabarat, they are silent. They know better than to say something. Being questioned by the Mukhabarat is not usually pleasant. In Syria, they have a joke about the Mukhabarat. One day, the three greatest intelligence services in the world got together to see who was the best of the best. 3 foxes were released into the wilderness, and whoever was the first to catch one would be declared the winner. So the Americans, using their spy, satellite, and infrared technology, they catch their fox in 20 minutes. The Russians, using a network of informants they set up throughout the forest, catch the fox shortly after. Both intelligence services, proud of their efforts, proud of their times, are waiting in the middle of the forest exchanging pleasantries. An hour passes. Another hour. Finally, they ask, where the hell are the Syrians? So they go searching, and a few minutes later, they find a rabbit tied to a tree. And the Mukhabarat is whipping it, yelling, admit you're a fox! Admit you're a fox! Admit you're a fox! This is where freedom of speech is absolutely governed, where there are consequences for saying wrong thing. Not only for you, but for your whole family. Of course, the radical left desires this for the United States today, and a Maoist inquisition for those committing sacrilege of holding a differing opinion than the pious ones do. Not only are people today responsible for what they say, but for what their loved ones say, similar to Syria in the radical left. What an example of this? Alexandra Katai, a Serbian soccer player on the LA Galaxy, whose wife tweeted in Serbian derogatory statements about the rioters. Not even the protesters, but the rioters, those who were assaulting cop cars. And she tweeted it out in Serbian. He had to make a public apology for his wife for what she said, and he got fired from his job anyways. They cut him. Freedom of speech, responsible for what your family says. This is what America is becoming if the radical left gets his way. On the other hand, you make fun of Donald Trump, you go on a profanity-laced-filled tirade about him, and you're perfectly welcome to do so. And in fact, applauded by the radical left, a golf clap, maybe even a chest bump. Woo, 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 woo. Say something against Black Lives Matter, get fired from your job. This is what we are embracing in the United States, the opposite of freedom. Welcome to Syria. You want to import Syrian style government to us? That's what we're going to have. You already have your little Twitter spies looking at everybody's history for past tweets, canceling them for past tweets, threatening boycotts on employers who don't fire those who aren't woke enough. This is where we're heading today. So you can compare that. You can compare that with making fun of conservatives, going on profanity-laced-filled rants about Donald Trump, criticizing him to no end, and it's all good. You can do that because conservatives and libertarians and moderates want you to have freedom of speech, not the left. The left, freedom of speech, is what you have in Syria. And pretty soon you're going to have the Mukhabarat here in the United States. You're already getting them, except it's not quite to the physical point where they're going to torture you. They just do so mentally today. Again, in any other country besides Western Europe and the United States, good luck criticizing the dear leader. Do you know how much death and torture the Syrian Secret Service has created for its people? That's part of the reason that the Arab Spring took hold. There's no doubt about it. But this is what authorities do to stay in power. Compare that to the peaceful transition of power in the United States. Compare that to the Maoist revolutionaries, again, of Antifa, who say, join us or get your heads chopped off, as they are yelling today in the Chaz, this Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle. And if you get arrested in the United States, you have some rights. You have to be treated appropriately by the police, by the horrific police that BLM say all of them are evil, that Antifa says ACAB, all cops are bastards, all cops must die. This is the narrative that's being portrayed. Yet you have rights. They treat you very, very well compared to 95% of the world. In Syria, in any other dictatorship, If you want to protest the government, you get disappeared. They come arrest you. Maybe your family too. That's why nobody does it. So as an American, the question that I have is, do you wish to install a Syrian-type government to take care of us? A secret service, a secret police that looks at your every single tweet, that looks over everything that you're saying, that tortures you, that takes you out to the woodshed? Do you want an anti-Semitic government that Linda Sarsour and the radical left would rather install? Just take a look at Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, applauding COVID BLM protesters, standing shoulder to shoulder, thousands of people deep, and denying the Jews the right to congregate, to have a funeral. It's pretty hard not to see that as anti-Semitic. It's pretty disgusting, actually. Nevertheless, this is Syria. Welcome. Compare that to the United States. Up next, and I'm going to link this on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to find a video about women's rights in the Middle East and Syria and compare them to the West as we decry and continue to decry this horrific totalitarian government that is the USA, the worst government in the world, right? Peace out. Just tune in again. Feel free to subscribe and share this material. Have a great day.